Chapter 61. You didn't give me a chance either. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 61. You didn't give me a chance either. An incomparably powerful force pressed down on the elder. It was pure power. A power that could crush everything in its way. At this moment, the old man could see his own power crumbling, and his self-confidence crumbling. The other party was stronger than he had expected. Impossible. How could the current generation's disciple be so strong? No, he definitely could not fall here. Burn. The old man wanted to burn his life potential in exchange for strength. He wanted to fight back at all costs. You want to erupt with power. Jiang Lan's voice suddenly rang out. Have you asked me for permission? At this moment, Jiang Lan's power disintegrated the old man's power at lightning speed. Jiang Lan, who possessed the power of 7 bulls, didn't stop at all. He directly punched the old man's body. A destructive power whistled past, shattering the old man's body. The bloody mist dissipated with the wind. Boom! A punch flew past. Jiang Lan stood where he was and the old man's body instantly shattered. This time, the other party did not leave anything behind. Seeing this, Jiang Lan frowned. He didn't hold back, but his power wasn't sufficient to blow the old man into dust. And the amount of blood mist was wrong. There's something wrong. Jiang Lan didn't hesitate to retreat. However, he was still too late. Formations began to appear around him, surrounding him. Even if I die, I will drag you down with me. The old man's miserable voice sounded. Jiang Lan didn't pay any attention to him. Instead, he used his strength to break through the restrictive formation. However, this was the array formation that the old man had activated with his life. Jiang Lan was actually unable to break through with a single punch. 3 punches, 3 at most. However, he realized that the remaining people seemed to be summoning something. A massive array formation appeared above the forest. A huge wolf head began to appear. The giant wolf noticed him immediately. Its gaze was as if it was looking at a weak lamb. It could envision the fresh meat in its mouth the next moment. As long as the giant wolf came out, he would be the first to be attacked. Jiang Lan felt a strong sense of danger. He frowned slightly but did not panic. He immediately broke free of the restriction. Boom! Boom! Bang! The shackles were blasted apart by Jiang Lan. Without pausing, he looked at the giant wolf that was about to appear. This wolf was even more powerful than that old man. This was what the other 5 relied on. Most importantly, killing those 5 people was no longer able to stop the giant wolf from descending. He had to deal with this giant wolf first. Jiang Lan took out the powerful Vajrapani pill and swallowed it in a single gulp. For safety reasons, he activated his spiritual suppression force. At this moment, Jiang Lan's body was filled with immense power. The power of 9 bulls circulated crazily in his body. Within moments, he arrived in front of the giant wolf and punched out. Roar! Jiang Lan's appearance made the giant wolf feel a sense of danger. It frantically tried to charge out of the array formation in order to unleash its full power. However, the other party did not give it time. Boom! A powerful fist struck the giant wolf's head. BL.net. A powerful force surged in all directions. Jiang Lan could sense that his opponent was mobilizing its strength in an attempt to counterattack. It was as if its power could not be used in a short period of time. Without fully coming out from the array formation, it was unable to fully unleash the majority of its powers. Take its life while it's weak. Jiang Lan frantically circulated the power of 9 bulls. At this moment, a rumbling sound rang out from his body. Power surged, gathering in Jiang Lan's hands. Moo! An invisible growl seemed to echo through the woods. The woods shattered and the land crumbled. Shatter! Jiang Lan's fist smashed into the wolf's head. Woo! Roar! An immense pain was transmitted through the wolf's head. At this moment, the giant wolf did not struggle to get out anymore. Instead, it struggled to get back. However, it was too late. Jiang Lan's fist broke through its defenses, with the power that could cause mountains to collapse and the earth to split apart. Boom! Blood splattered everywhere and half of the struggling wolf's body was lost. With its tenacious vitality, it struggled for a while before stopping. His life aura was extinguished. Jiang Lan didn't stay to check. Instead, he activated his 9 steps of heavenly travel. This was because the remaining 5 people were fleeing. He wanted to get rid of these people while he still had some strength. Soon, Jiang Lan appeared before the early stage Essence Soul Realm Cultivator. The moment he saw Jiang Lan, his pupils shrank. He put his hand behind his back and immediately said, "Fellow Taoist, please listen to my explanation. I was forced by them." "I didn't," Jiang Lan punched out, directly blasting the man into a bloody mist. "Explain." What was the point of explaining now? In the next moment, Jiang Lan arrived before the perfected Golden Core Cultivator. Seeing how even an early stage Essence Soul Cultivator and the Sky Wolf could not withstand a single punch, the perfected Golden Core Cultivator knew that there was no way he could escape. "Senior, give me a chance." "Chance?" Jiang Lan brandished his fists. He exploded with a punch. "Neither of you gave me a chance previously." The remaining 2 escaped separately. They were already panicking. They really did not expect a Kunlun disciple to be so powerful. The other party's cultivation was at the mid-stage Essence Soul realm. He was too strong. If they had known earlier, they would have. They would have still chosen to attack this person. After all, he was only at the mid-stage Essence Soul realm. It was not as if they had no chances of subduing him. If we were better prepared, we might have had a chance. The other perfected Golden Core was filled with regret. At that moment, a cold voice came from beside him. "It's your turn." Chapter 62. Determination to become stronger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 62. Determination to become stronger. I have never expected that Kunlun disciples are actually so ruthless. We've underestimated you. But do you really think you're invincible? You shall die with me. A low roar belonging to a perfected Golden Core could be heard. Facing Jiang Lan's arrival, this perfected Golden Core did not have the slightest fear. His eyes were filled with madness. The power in his body began to condense, as if it was about to erupt with its strongest power. Boom! However, Jiang Lan's fist was several times faster than his gathered strength, perhaps even hundreds of times faster. Boom! The body belonging to a perfected Golden Core was instantly destroyed. His power was directly dispersed. The perfected Golden Core looked at Jiang Lan in disbelief. Then, he heard the final sentence he would hear in this world. "The reason why you all have lost is because I have never underestimated you all." A perfected Golden Core was killed with a single punch. After that, Jiang Lan didn't stop. There were still 2 people waiting for him. Boom! Boom! In just a few breaths' time, Jiang Lan had already stood at the original position. At this time, the array formation in the sky had already disappeared. The giant wolf did not leave a corpse behind. It seemed like it wanted to return before his death and had reversed the array formation. Jiang Lan turned around and left. He activated his one-leaf vision. In case anyone found him or counted him. One-leaf vision was able to erase his traces and confuse those wanting to find him. No one could calculate or find out that he was the one who had caused this commotion. As the old man was dead, the array formation had lost its effect. Therefore, there was no problem for Jiang Lan to leave. He planned to catch the ice cicadas in another area. But he needed to be faster. However, the powerful Vajrapani pill had made him feel a little exhausted. He needed a place to recover. A long time later, Jiang Lan woke up in a cave. There was nothing wrong with the surroundings. His strength had mostly been restored. Those people were indeed not easy to deal with. In the cave, Jiang Lan frowned. If he had hesitated for a moment before, he would have had no choice but to escape. That old man knew that I was hiding my cultivation and was waiting for me to take the bait. It seems that I really do lack some combat experience. If not for the fact that his strength had exceeded the elder's expectations, the situation might not turn to his favor. And when he had killed that elder, those people hadn't panicked in the slightest. They had immediately summoned a powerful wolf. If the giant wolf managed to fully descend, he would be the one fleeing. Reality proves that I indeed don't have enough combat experience. However, facing these people, no matter what, it would be difficult to break away from the situation. The only way is to be stronger. Thus, I should return to train. Jiang Lan left the cave. Although he wanted to go back and cultivate, he still had to catch ice cicada. After that, Jiang Lan began to search for ice cicadas in the periphery. This time, he didn't have any thoughts of going deeper. It took him some time before he finally caught 2 ice cicadas. I can now go back and report to Master. Looking at the ice cicadas in his hand, Jiang Lan let out a sigh of relief. After this training, his master would not let him go out to train for the next few years. Jiang Lan was very careful on the way back. He was sure that no one was watching him this time around. He never met the gazes coming from the insides of the forest again. Of course, it was also possible that it was because he did not go deep enough into the forest. In short, apart from the changes brought by those people at the beginning, there were no other problems. As for other matters, he had no intention of participating. With his strength, he could not participate. Jiang Lan walked back. When he passed by the old inn, he ordered a pot of ordinary wine. He did not have enough spirit stones. When he took the wine, Jiang Lan saw another bag of peanuts. "Big brother, your peanuts." The youth gave him another bag of peanuts. "Thank you." Jiang Lan took the peanuts from the young man. At this moment, he felt that this youth was somewhat different from before. He seemed to be more exhausted. Without further thought, he left. The youth and the inn owner watched as Jiang Lan left. After Jiang Lan left, the old man said to the youth, "Grandpa doesn't ask for too much. I don't require you to have supreme physical strength. I just need you to be able to enter the youth's mental realm when he enters the inn. Big brother isn't a Kunlun genius, right?" The youth asked. "His talent is very ordinary. Everyone can see that." The elder said calmly. "Really?" The young man was in disbelief. "There are spirit stones here which can test one's talent. When that young man comes the next time, you can try it on him," the old man said confidently. The elder's confidence made the youth somewhat convinced. After hesitating for a moment, he nodded and said, "Okay, then. But if his talent is impressive, it doesn't count." "Sure." The old man smiled. When he returned to the 9th summit, Jiang Lan did not find his master. However, he took the ice cicadas, wine, and peanuts and placed them at the peak of the 9th summit. His master often sat here and rarely left. This departure might have something to do with the opening of the Jade Pool. After retreating from the peak of the 9th summit, Jiang Lan intended to take care of the 9th summit. He had realized long ago that this would calm his heart even more. It was quite beneficial for his cultivation of the immovable wisdom king incantation. As for the unmoved sage, he had yet to take a look at the sage chapter up till now. It was still not time for him to do so. As he was not strong enough, he would only be affected by the sage chapter and not benefit from it. After taking care of everything on the 9th summit, Jianglan returned to the netherworld cave to cultivate. At this moment, the netherworld aura had become evidently thicker. Under normal circumstances, it's somewhat unsuitable for cultivation. He arrived in front of the vegetative egg and discovered that the vegetative egg seemed to be shrouded in a black mist. This meant that the concentration of netherworld aura here had exceeded the threshold that the vegetative egg could tolerate. Chapter 63. Jade Pool Observing Ceremony. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 63. Jade Pool Observing Ceremony. Jianglan looked at the vegetative egg and decided to observe it for 2 more days. Being calm, he wondered if the vegetative egg would have inner demons. He decided to check on it again tomorrow. Jianglan then began cultivating. This was the best time for him to cultivate. The greater the concentration of netherworld aura, the faster he cultivated. This was because it better suited the Kunlun Heart Sutra. On the 3rd day, Jianglan moved the vegetative egg out. He discovered that the egg's life force had weakened. If he were to continue leaving it there, it would be finished. Later, Jianglan once again focused on his cultivation. His master did not say much about his training trip to the ice cicada forest. It was considered a pass. However, his master had reminded him that the aura of the netherworld had become heavier, and he had to act according to his ability. 3 years passed once more. This year, it was Jianglan's 50th year on the 9th summit. He was cultivating peacefully when he suddenly received a message. This message came from Kunlun directly. All personal disciples in Kunlun would receive it. The Jade Pool is opening. Jianglan sat in the netherworld cave, reading the news. He knew about the opening of the Jade Pool a few years ago. However, his master said that it would be a while later. He did not expect that it would be a few years later. It seemed that he had to familiarize himself with his master's concept of time. The netherworld cave continued its eruption of netherworld aura. However, it had not reached its maximum value. From Jianglan's estimation, it would take a few more years. Jianglan didn't care about this. In fact, he was looking forward to it even more. Because the longer it overflowed, the better it was for him. In the past few years, his cultivation had become much stronger. Although he hadn't reached the late stage essence soul realm, he was close. His cultivation speed was nearly twice as fast as before. If this continued, he would soon reach the void refinement realm. In the past few years, he had already completed most of the things he needed to cultivate. His 9 steps of heavenly travel had reached the 8th step, the pinnacle he could achieve at the essence soul realm. He had a feeling that the 9th step could only be achieved when one was close to achieving immortality. His power of 9 bulls was close to the power of the 8 bulls, but at the essence soul realm, it was unlikely to break through the power of the 8 bulls. He had long been familiarized with his 9th heaven's flowing fire, heavenly thunder descent, 7 stars sword technique, yin-yang sword technique and spirit ape spell. He was at the essence soul realm, so these spells and techniques best suited him. He had used the rainbow auspicious clouds on the vegetative egg, but it didn't feel like much of it had been consumed. It was good for increasing his proficiency in the spell. When it came to humans, he wouldn't use it casually. The impact was too great. Jianglan had also cultivated the spirit speech spell for some time. He also tried it out using the dragon language, and the effect was quite good. It might not be suitable to be used against enemies, but it was quite effective in cleaning up the plants. He had learned most of the dragon language. It hadn't been long since he had entered the essence soul realm, and his progress had been too fast. It would take some time for his mastery of the other spells to catch up. He had signed in and received quite a few other things over the years. He managed to get his hands on the immortal binding rope, pseudo, again, and the spirit striking whip, pseudo, as well. Jianglan had familiarized himself with these new equipments of his. The aura is getting stronger. I wonder if anyone will come out by then. After leaving the netherworld cave, Jianlan glanced at the entrance. There were still some years before the netherworld aura outflow would stop. After that, Jianlan went to his previous residence and watered the vegetative egg with some spirit liquid. Here, the vegetative egg became much better. It had been 50 years. This vegetative egg of his was no longer a spirit pet. It had become a potted plant. There's still some time before the ceremony. I shall clean up the hall first. Jianlan looked at the sky and discovered that it was still early. It wasn't suitable for him to go now. After he had cleaned the hall, it would be time. During this time, Jianlan cast rainbow auspicious clouds once on himself. This spell did have an effect on himself. But the longer the intervals between the times he cast it on himself, the more rainbow auspicious clouds he would use and the longer the delay would be. He had a feeling that if he used this spell technique after too long an interval, he would destroy the spell. As expected, it was a spell technique that was merely similar to that of a divine power. There were many restrictions and could only be used to sign in occasionally. After that, Jianlan left the 9th summit. The Jade Pool was located behind the 9 peaks of Kunlun. The rough location of the Jade Pool was at the source of the Kunlun mountain range. It was hard to go to the Jade Pool by foot. Jianlan had to ride on his sword. In the high skies of Kunlun, there were no clouds for thousands of miles. The sun shone brightly as countless sword lights appeared in the sky. Jianlan was also among them. He didn't fly too fast nor too high. The others formed groups of 3 to 5. However, Jianlan was alone. This was because he was the sole personal disciple of the 9th summit. It could be said that all the members of the 9th summit had come to the Jade Pool to observe the ceremony. However, he was glad that his cultivation on the surface was at the early stage Golden Core realm. It wouldn't look too bad like that. If it was a few years earlier, he would have been a perfected foundation establishment cultivator. If so, he would be the sole foundation establishment cultivator mixed in with a group of Essence Soul or Golden Core cultivators. Then, Jianlan discovered that he was wrong. The others weren't just Essence Souls and Golden Cores. Some of them even had immortal power within their bodies. Chapter 64. Entering the Jade Pool. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 64. Entering the Jade Pool, Immortal. Jianlan was shocked. It turned out that some personal disciples had already become immortals. This was beyond Jianlan's expectations. But thinking about it, his cultivation had already reached the Golden Core realm over the past 50 years. Kunlun had been established for many years and there were many disciples under the 9 peaks. It would be abnormal if no one achieved immortality. However, Jianlan only saw one. He did not know if there was anyone else. Perhaps there was. But he was unsure. Jianlan didn't bother to look at them. He continued riding on his sword towards the Jade Pool. Although he no longer paid attention to the others, someone was paying attention to him. Soon after, Jianlan discovered that someone was heading towards him. It was none other than the immortal he had just seen. "Junior brother, are you from the 9th summit?" A man landed beside Jianlan. At this moment, he was riding his sword beside Jianlan, and his speed was equal to Jianlan's. Jianlan looked over and immediately said politely, "9th Summit's Jianlan greets senior brother. I'm Lu Jian from the 8th Summit, junior brother." Lu Jian nodded at Jianlan before continuing. "This is the first time I've seen a junior brother from the 9th Summit appear at the Jade Pool. I came to meet you out of curiosity. I hope I didn't disturb you." "No, of course not," Jianlan said softly. He did not sense any malice from the other party's words. He didn't feel any power locking onto him either. He found it strange that the other party was so easygoing. It was rare to see a fellow disciple being so polite to him. However, he could not rule out the possibility that there was a motive behind his actions. All in all, he just had to remain vigilant. Then I won't disturb Junior Marshall brother any longer. I'm just here to get to know you. As he spoke, he left Jiang Lan's side. He returned to the team from the 8th summit. There were many people from the other summits present. Only Jiang Lan was alone. However, Jiang Lan felt that not everyone was a personal disciple. As long as one's talent wasn't too bad, they could actually attend the ceremony. However, the quota should also be limited. As for those below the Golden Core realm, Jiang Lan felt that there wouldn't be disciples at such a level here. In a short moment, Jiang Lan arrived before a giant mountain peak. Immortal clouds rose in spirals here, with quite a few rocks floating in the air. However, he couldn't see anything on top of the mountain. One by one, people landed on the floating rocks. Jiang Lan also found a corner and gently landed. He was a little disappointed. This place did not really count as the Jade Pool. In fact, he couldn't even see the Jade Pool. There was no notification from the system that this place was a path of the Great Tao either. However, Jiang Lan wasn't in a hurry. He looked behind him. It was his first time here, so he didn't know the exact procedure. He was neither early nor late. There were still some people who were landing on the floating rocks. However, he discovered that among the many disciples, he was the weakest at the early stage Golden Core realm. Fortunately, no one paid attention to him. Not long after, Jiang Lan saw a person land in front of him. She was wearing a blue and white immortal dress. The side of her face seemed to have a bright red pattern. Ao Longyu. As Ao Longyu landed, Lin Xia also landed. Right beside Ao Longyu. Jiang Lan merely watched without any surprise. The people in the corner did not have high cultivation levels. However, Ao Longyu's cultivation was at the perfected Golden Core realm. Her cultivation speed was pretty fast. Lin Xia was only close to the late stage Golden Core realm. Unknowingly, Jiang Lan's cultivation had almost caught up to these people. However, it would be difficult to catch up after that. Before long, the other two people who were cultivating at the entrance of the Netherworld cave also landed nearby. Both of them were at the late stage Golden Core realm. Whoosh! A bright light flashed. A man landed in front of them. Gu Qi stood on the floating rock with fighting spirit. Jiang Lan naturally recognized him. He had entered the Essence Soul realm. Moreover, he seems to have entered the realm some time ago. Gu Qi was truly exceptional. As for those who arrived after that, Jiang Lan basically didn't know who they were. He didn't pay much attention to them. Instead, he waited for further developments. Quite a few people came, but no one spoke here. It was as if everyone was just waiting for the ceremony to start. Not long after, a loud voice came from above. The Jade Pool is about to open. Disciples who wish to enter the Jade Pool, as well as disciples who wish to observe the ceremony from a close distance, will be invited. Those who are strong enough will be allowed up. As his voice fell, fog appeared from all directions. Jiang Lan's range of vision was instantly lowered. It was hard to even see his own fingers. Following that, Jiang Lan felt his stone rising rapidly before quickly moving backward. It was as if he was disrupting everyone's position. Jiang Lan steadied his mind. He was not too surprised. Entering the Jade Pool and observing the ceremony from a close distance wasn't unexpected. Although this place was considered the Jade Pool, it was not close to the path of the Great Tao. If he could enter, he would naturally give it a try. Hopefully, the test to gauge who could observe the ceremony from a close distance was not based on one's cultivation. Based on his current surface cultivation level. He was the lowest. A moment later, Jiang Lan felt his stone stop. A stream of air swept past him. At this moment, Jiang Lan saw a flower blossom in the fog ahead. It was like a path to heaven. This was a path that led to the Jade Pool. Did it mean that if he wanted to enter, he had to walk to the end? Whether or not you can enter will depend on your own ability. You'll watch the ceremony at the place where you reach at the end. A steady voice sounded again. Jianlan knew that the competition had begun. However, the voice did not say what he would get if he managed to get in the jade pool. Perhaps entering the jade pool itself was an honor. If it wasn't to sign in, Jianlan wouldn't even bother attempting to go in. I shall just do what I can. Jianlan then stepped forward. Chapter 65. Relying entirely on one's own strength. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 65. Relying entirely on one's own strength. Jianlan looked at this path. He discovered that there was still fog in the surroundings. Only his path didn't have fog ahead. However, the edge of his path was filled with fog. He could not see what was happening outside. His senses could not penetrate the fog either. Is this the jade pool's ability? Jianlan was curious. However, he still walked forward. He was already standing on the path and the stone beneath his feet was nowhere to be seen. Jianlan walked forward step by step. He could feel that the fog was not an absolute barrier. It seemed like there was a certain possibility that he could run onto someone else's path. Of course, Jianlan didn't plan on doing this, nor did he want to have any unnecessary interactions with others. Jianlan, who was walking forward, suddenly felt a restriction under her feet. It was an array formation. It wasn't hard to break open. Or rather, it was very easy. Just as Jianlan intended to remove the array formation's restrictions, an attack suddenly appeared from within the fog. It went straight through towards him. Jianlan was startled and immediately punched out. However, just as the attack was about to reach him, he realized that it was not a man-made attack, but an attack by the fog. Boom! With a punch, the attack from the fog shattered. He had used the power of a golden core to counter the attack. However, after shattering the attack, he took out a spirit sword. The spirit swords used by personal disciples were much better than most normal spirit swords. Although he did have much better spirit swords, they were all received through signing in. He couldn't take them out. He didn't really calculate how many he had gotten. After all, sword techniques weren't as strong as his power of 9 bulls. Then, Jianlan broke through the restrictions. He roughly understood. The path was restricted by array formations and there were all kinds of attacks that could come from within the fog. The further he went down, the higher the probability of him being imprisoned or attacked. I feel like I might not be able to enter the jade pool. Although he had some understanding of array formations, his strength was lacking. He couldn't use his essence soul realm strength here. It was hard to say if he would be discovered. There was no need to take risks. I'm not very good at both array formations and cultivation. AI. He let out a soft sigh. Jianlan then stepped forward. He had decided that he would just do his best. If he couldn't make it, he could still wait for the next time. That was unless someone managed to enter the jade pool this time. Of course, if possible, he would still try his best to enter. After all, he had to depend on his luck if he failed to enter this time. What if someone had entered this time? In that case, he would not have the chance to enter the jade pool. At least not for the next 1,000 years. Without thinking too much, Jianlan continued forward. He maintained his vigilance as he dispelled the formations on the way to avoid the surrounding attacks. However, he realized that dodging was useless. Even if he managed to dodge the attack, it would still continue. He could only counter it or move on. However, if he chose to move on, the confinement array would still remain, causing him to be trapped. It was too difficult to be alone. After a long time, Jianlan felt that the sky had already darkened. At this rate, he wouldn't be able to get far by tomorrow morning. The duration of the opening of the jade pool was not stated clearly either. It was most likely the case that this selection would end the moment one person managed to enter the jade pool. Do I need to work with someone else? But he was so weak. As long as someone learned that he was from the ninth summit, they would choose not to cooperate with him. There was no other way. The disciples of the ninth summit had always been criticized. No one from the ninth summit was talented enough to be a representative of the summit in Kunlun. After all, it was just him from the ninth summit. This might be the only chance to enter the jade pool. Let's give it a try. Jiang Lan placed his hand on the fog beside the road. At this moment, his path seemed to have become accessible. Then, he felt someone walking into his path. Not long after, a strand of long hair fell, and a woman in a blue and white immortal dress landed behind Jiang Lan. Jiang Lan was surprised to see this person. Ao Longyu. He had never imagined that Ao Longyu would come. Ao Longyu was also a little surprised. She didn't like traveling with others, so she walked forward alone. After all, the person she would partner with would be allocated randomly. If it was junior sister Sia, she would not refuse. However, it was very difficult for her to get junior sister Sia as her teammate through a random selection. Hence she thought that there was no need to waste her time and chose to proceed alone. But after walking for a long time, she realized that it was very difficult for an individual person to walk far. In order to enter the jade pool, she could only try to find someone to cooperate with her. However, she did not expect that she would arrive on the path of her junior brother from the ninth summit. The strong would always be partnered with someone weaker. Seeing the other party's confusion, Ao Longyu explained. This was the rule. And there was only one chance. One could refuse after seeing the potential teammate. However, one could only continue walking forward alone after that. Jiang Lan didn't know about these rules, but he also felt that it was difficult to take advantage of them. However, he was not familiar with Ao Longyu. Before he could speak, Ao Longyu's calm and emotionless voice could be heard. Junior brother wants to enter the jade pool. I want to try, Jiang Lan replied. He did want to try. I'm from the dragon race and have pretty good strength. I can block the attacks around me. Junior brother, are you good with array formations? Ao Longyu asked calmly. She could indeed work with Jiang Lan. This was because Jiang Lan had some accomplishments in the study of array formations. At least, he was better than her. Jiang Lan pondered for a moment. With Ao Longyu's strength, he could indeed make his progress much faster. But his attainments in array formations were not that strong. He knew his limits. He did not intend to force himself. Only a little bit. Jiang Lan spoke. Ao Longyu remained silent for a moment. She looked down at the ground as though she was thinking about her gains and losses. After a moment, she looked at Jiang Lan and asked. Junior brother, are you willing to cooperate with me? Chapter 66. With me around, there's no need to worry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 66. With me around, there's no need to worry. Jiang Lan didn't think much about Ao Longyu's question. The other party was strong. At least, she was much stronger than his cultivation on the surface. It was impossible to find a better partner than Ao Longyu. Thank you for the trouble, senior sister, Jiang Lan said softly. Ao Longyu nodded lightly. Having reached an agreement, Jiang Lan kept his spirit sword and continued walking forward. He was in charge of breaking the array formations, so he could only walk in front. After all, the array formation was activated first before the attack appeared. Of course, it was impossible to fly from above. He had tried before. It didn't take long before the next array formation was activated. Jiang Lan ignored everything else and lowered his head to break the restrictions on the formation. Then, he felt an attack. He did not dodge immediately. Instead, he waited for Ao Longyu to attack. As expected, the moment the attack appeared, a sword light flashed. Before the attack could fully appear, it was destroyed by a single strike. Jiang Lan wasn't surprised. He lowered his head and broke the formation array. Soon, he released the shackles on his feet. Indeed, the progress of having two people is much faster than traveling alone. Jiang Lan muttered to himself. This was especially so when his partner was not weak. Ao Longyu watched as Jiang Lan dismantled the array formation and continued forward. She followed suit. Her gaze was calm. As if she didn't care about anything. However, she also felt that the two of them traveling together made their progress much smoother and faster. Although Jiang Lan, who had been moving forward, paid attention to the attacks, he didn't make any obvious movements. Ao Longyu would immediately deal with the sudden attacks. After a while, Jiang Lan felt that they had walked a fair distance. Even Ao Longyu could sense that their current progress had already surpassed her previous progress. This time, Jiang Lan was imprisoned once again. When he wanted to undo the array formation, he discovered that it was much more difficult than before. With this discovery, he immediately checked the attack. The attack might have changed too. He would not underestimate any attack, and he would make sufficient follow-up preparations. However, Ao Longyu was a genius, and she wielded immense power. She would not be necessarily like him. Senior sister Ao, the array formation has changed. Jiang Lan reminded him. Time was of the essence, so he couldn't say much. However, the surrounding attacks were still a step faster. Ao Longyu heard Jiang Lan's words, but she couldn't change her attack immediately. In the next instant, Jiang Lan saw that Ao Longyu's sword light didn't directly cut through the missed attack. He moved his lower body, planning to dodge the attack. However, just as he moved, a dragon's roar sounded beside him. A dragon shadow appeared behind him. Boom! The fog attack that was about to arrive was shattered by the dragon shadow. With me around, there's no need to worry. Ao Longyu's calm voice sounded from behind Jiang Lan. Jiang Lan agreed and didn't say anything else. Then, he continued to undo the array formation. Ao Longyu was indeed very powerful. However, Jiang Lan would still not let down his guard. This was a habit. However, just as Jiang Lan was about to continue, Ao Longyu's clear and calm voice sounded again. If I face an attack I am unable to handle later on, I will voice it out. Junior brother, don't hesitate then. Ao Longyu understood her own strength. She could no longer crush the attacks further down the path with her current cultivation base. Therefore, she needed to let Jiang Lan know. All right. Jiang Lan nodded, not asking anything else. Ao Longyu nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. And then the two kept moving forward. The speed at which Jiang Lan dismantled the array formation became much slower, and the surrounding attacks had become much stronger. Thus, their progress was greatly reduced. However, neither of them spoke. Neither of them discussed what to do. One lowered his head to dismantle the array formation while the other defended against the surrounding attacks. At present, the two of them did not interfere with each other. The path this time seems to be very difficult. A few people stood outside the jade pool, and one of them was a beautiful immortal. She was Immortal Jade Bamboo of the third summit. The stronger the aura of the jade pool, the harder it is to approach. A middle-aged man spoke. Will someone enter the jade pool this time? If there is, it would be a good thing for Kunlun. Another person said. What do you think, junior sister Yuzhu? If there was, the person would most likely come from the third summit. This was because there were many female disciples who had come from the third summit. Furthermore, some specially chosen disciples from the third summit were also here. Yuzhu lowered her eyebrows and said calmly. Who knows? The others didn't pay much attention to it. They looked at the jade pool and realized that some people were approaching it. Let's retreat. Someone is approaching. The fog here is dissipating. Whether or not someone will be able to enter will be up to fate. It was morning. Jianlan didn't stop along the way. He had put all of his knowledge on array formations to use. The array formations behind were getting more and more strenuous for him. He wasn't the only one. Ao Longyu's attacks also began to weaken. Ao Longyu had transformed into a half-dragon once again. Her slender and fair fingers had turned into dragon claws. Dragon scales covered her arms. The most obvious change was the scar on her side profile that stretched from her face to her neck. This was the injury from last time. It seemed that once she transformed into a dragon, or used her full strength, the scar would appear. They had walked a long distance, but the road ahead was endless. Jianlan didn't know where he was. But he knew that he had yet to enter the Jade Pool. Until now, the system had not given him any notifications that he was on a path of the Great Tao. God knows how far this will last. Jianlan looked ahead and muttered to himself. He continued to walk forward. It was not time to give up yet. Ao Longyu was walking behind him, and her strength had become a little unstable. However, she had no intention of resting. She wanted to go as far as she could. The moment Jianlan touched the confinement array formation, a clear voice sounded in his mind. Ding! Chapter 67. Jade Pool Goddess. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 67. Jade Pool Goddess, Ding. A path of the Great Tao has been discovered. The host can sign in here permanently. Do you want to sign in? This was a notification that he had longed for. After hearing this voice, Jianlan didn't sign it immediately. This was not the time to be distracted. Fortunately, this trip was not in vain. As long as he encountered the path of the Great Tao, he would definitely be able to obtain something on the level of the Taoist scripture. With that, he would experience a qualitative leap in his cultivation. It didn't matter if it was the Taoist scripture or the creation pill. However, if it was a Dharma treasure, it would be very disappointing. After all, he did not rely on Dharma treasures much. One's own strength was the most important thing. Without further thought, Jianlan began to undo the array formation beneath his feet. Ao Longyu appeared beside him. Boom! Powerful forces intertwined around him. If he wasn't careful, this power would come for him. Jianlan ignored this. It would not be too late for him to avoid it when it really came. As of now, Ao Longyu had yet to say that she could not handle it. If he needed to dodge, Ao Longyu would speak. Squat down, Ao Longyu said. Her voice was very stable. Jianlan didn't think too much about it and immediately squatted down. Boom! As expected. A clash of power appeared above him, but it didn't affect him. It took some time for the surrounding energy to settle down. Jianlan hadn't been released yet. Ao Longyu was by his side calming her energy. She had expended too much energy and was almost at her limit. Reaching here was something she had not expected. They had come far. Any further and it would be difficult for them. Jianlan didn't continue forward after the array formation was broken. Instead, he looked at Ao Longyu. Senior sister Ao, do you want to continue? If the other party wanted to continue, he would continue. After all, dispelling the array formation was not dangerous. It just required some time. He had already achieved his goal, so he didn't mind if the other party wanted to move forward. It would do him no harm. The closer one was to the path of the Great Tao, the better the gift from the Great Tao. Moreover, since it was a collaboration, he would not go back on his word. He believed in mutual aid. Ao Longyu looked ahead and said softly, "Junior brother, let's try moving forward a little more." Jianlan nodded and walked forward. Very soon, he encountered another confinement array formation. The moment he encountered it, he felt that it was several times more difficult than before. The array formation is several times stronger, about 3 to 5 times stronger than before. Jian Lan reminded. At this moment, Ao Longyu's body erupted with immense power. A dragon's roar could be heard. Before the attack even appeared, she was already prepared to deal with it with all her might. The next moment, the attack appeared. This time, even if Jian Lan didn't raise his head, he still felt a tangible pressure. This was not an attack that golden cores could deal with. Boom! The massive attack almost affected Jian Lan. Retreat! Ao Longyu's voice rang out. Jian Lan didn't hesitate in the slightest. He quickly broke free from the restriction, and then left his original position. Fortunately, it was only one step. Otherwise, he might not be able to escape the attack. Boom! Another loud bang could be heard. Ao Longyu also retreated. Jian Lan could see that her hand was injured. The two of them stood where they were without speaking. They knew. This was their limit. If they wanted to move forward, they would need to have greater strength and greater attainments in array formations. Jian Lan could still break apart the array formation. But it would take a pretty long time. In terms of the attacks that came from the fog, it was already at a level that Ao Longyu was already unable to resist. Even if Jian Lan used his full strength, he might not be able to go far. If he chose to use his full strength, he wouldn't break the formation bit by bit. Instead, he would use his 9 steps of heavenly travel to try to escape from the restriction or use the power of 9 bulls to forcefully break it. Theoretically, he could go further, but it was hard to say. No matter how he looked at it, the jade pool wasn't that simple. Ao Longyu stood rooted to the spot. At this moment, she was stabilizing her strength. The dragon scales on her body were also rapidly disappearing. The scar on her side profile was also disappearing. Jian Lan only took a glance and knew that Ao Longyu no longer had any plans to continue. However, there was still a faint dragon shadow on Ao Longyu's body. It should be a necessary precaution. Jian Lan didn't pay much attention to it. In fact, he had always maintained his vigilance. Although they were from the same sect, they were not familiar with each other. No one was sure if they would suddenly turn into each other's enemies. Everyone had encountered such an affair before. Jian Lan returned to his senses and started his business. System, I shall sign in here at the Jade Pool. Ding. Signed in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the gift of the Great Tao. You have obtained Kunlun's creation. Jade Pool Goddess Diagram. Jade Pool Goddess Diagram. Kunlun, the ancestor of all mountains, gathered the essence of all living things to the Jade Pool Holy Land and engraved the secrets into the goddess diagram, allowing it to share the fortuitous opportunities in the Jade Pool. After the system's voice fell, Jian Lan frowned. Kunlun's creation. It seemed to be related to Kunlun Mountain. In theory, it was inferior to the Taoist scripture. Creation of heaven and earth. Of course, this was nothing. After all, the word creation meant that this treasure was obviously not simple. However, what puzzled Jian Lan was that the Jade Pool Goddess diagram didn't seem to be of much use to his cultivation. What kind of fortuitous encounter did the Jade Pool have? Moreover, did the Jade Pool have a goddess? According to the documents he had read over the years, Kunlun had never had a goddess. At least not in the records. The Kunlun Heart Sutra was left behind by the Kunlun ancestor, who should be a male. Furthermore, the Kunlun Heart Sutra that was left behind was not a specific cultivation technique but a kind of enlightenment. The Kunlun Heart Sutra that Jian Lan learned might be the most complete. Then, Jian Lan began to look through the Jade Pool Goddess diagram in his mind. It looked like an unopened album. However, the moment he saw the album, Jian Lan had a feeling that he knew its function. Chapter 68. Accelerating one's cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 68. Accelerating one's cultivation. Kunlun's creation meant that the treasure used Kunlun as its source to absorb fortuitous opportunities and fortunes. When Jianglong looked at the diagram, he could clearly feel it. The Kunlun Jade Pool Goddess diagram was only useful in Kunlun. Kunlun was the ancestor of all mountains. It was the one that had nurtured the Jade Pool. The spiritual energies of the heaven and earth, the essence of the sun and moon, and the vitality of all living beings. All of these were within the Jade Pool. Cultivating in the Jade Pool would yield twice the results with half the effort, allowing one to progress at a rapid pace. If someone managed to enter the Jade Pool, the spiritual energies of heaven and earth, as well as the essence of the sun and moon, would seep out of the Jade Pool and bring about a positive effect on the entire Kunlun mountain range. Kunlun's cultivation environment would then improve further. As for the Jade Pool Goddess diagram, it could pass on the fortuitous opportunity of being able to cultivate in the Jade Pool. Cultivating with it was like receiving the help of a god, as if one had entered the Jade Pool himself. But the Jade Pool needed a goddess. Jianglong immediately understood. This Jade Pool Goddess diagram couldn't be considered good, but it could provide him with a better cultivation environment for a long time. Adding on the Netherworld cave entrance, it wouldn't be long before he reached the Void Refinement realm. The premise was that a goddess appeared in Kunlun. That's right. When Jianglong opened the diagram, all he saw was a lake. No one was on the diagram. Neither were there any spiritual energies of heaven and earth, nor any essence of the sun and moon. This item is not bad, but it's severely limited. The creation pill is much more effective and useful compared to this. However, the Taoist scripture was still the best. However, he had already received these things before. He didn't know if they would appear again. At present, the creation of heaven and earth had yet to reappear again. Of course, Jianglong wasn't greedy. What he had gained had indeed helped him greatly. What he needed to do now was to activate the goddess diagram. Then, he would hide in the 9th summit to cultivate and enter the Void Refinement realm as soon as possible. He wanted to pursue the path of immortality. By the time Jianglong regained his composure, Ao Longyu had returned to normal. Her aura also became stable. The two of them stood on the path without speaking. A gentle breeze blew past, and they felt as if the fog was about to be blown away. Time's up. Jianglong and the others heard the sudden voice. At this moment, Jianglong felt as if he was stepping on a rock. Ao Longyu felt the same. However, Jianglong was a little puzzled about the time. He didn't know how to judge how long the trial had lasted. The countdown begins when the first person enters the inner regions of the Jade Pool, and the countdown lasts 6 hours. Ao Longyu's calm voice sounded. She could tell that Jianglong didn't know much about the rules here. However, these rules were obtained by herself through asking around. There was no need for the sect to say anything, nor were they obliged to. After all, only those who wanted to enter the Jade Pool would care about these things. Jianglong naturally knew that senior sister Ao was explaining things to him. Thus, he gave a nod of thanks in return. But he was curious. Were they considered in the inner region now? Even if they weren't, they should be extremely close to it. After all, he had made contact with a path of the Great Tao. The fog was quickly dissipating. Ao Longyu watched as the fog dissipated. She was very concerned about where she was. This was her limit. She understood this fact. However, she really hoped that she could enter the Jade Pool's inner region. This was very important to her. After a few breaths, the fog had dissipated completely. At this moment, Jianglong discovered that he was standing on a mountain peak with a bottomless abyss behind him. Far ahead was a calm lake. Ripples could be seen on the surface of the lake water, and immortal clouds gathered above it. Jianglong observed the people around him. 13 people. He realized that there were only 13 others who had reached the mountain peak. Including them, there were 15 people. All of them had extremely powerful cultivation bases, and half of them even possessed immortal power. Even if they hadn't become immortals, they were definitely at the pinnacle of the void refinement realm. They had touched the gate of immortality but had yet to enter it. Then, Jiang Lan discovered that only he and Ao Longyu were at the Golden Core realm. They all came alone. Jiang Lan was surprised. Yes, seeing the distance between the individuals present, there was absolutely no possibility of them having cooperated. Moreover, these people were all very close to the inside. Only he and Ao Longyu were at the edge of the inner region. Jiang Lan looked back and saw that there were many people behind, but most of them were alone. Looks like these people don't really care where they watch the ceremony. A thought flashed across his mind. Well, he understood their mentality. Most people probably came here to train and temper themselves. He had come with a purpose. Ao Longyu should have come with a purpose as well. Some people were surprised that Jiang Lan and Ao Longyu appeared inside the inner regions of the Jade Pool. Like Lin Xia. Isn't he the junior brother from the 9th summit? His cultivation level isn't high, so how could he have come so far with senior sister? Senior sister Lin might not know, but the junior brother of the 9th summit has average cultivation talent, but his attainments in array formations are not weak. At least compared to us, he's stronger, said Mu Xiu beside Lin Xia. The three of them had received the help of Jiang Lan 10 years ago, so they naturally had some understanding. Therefore, it could be said that senior sister Ao was very lucky to meet the junior brother of the 9th summit. Relatively speaking, the luck of this junior brother of the 9th summit was not bad either. After all, no one would be willing to cooperate with an early-stage golden core. Even they themselves had no confidence in bringing along Jiang Lan into the inner regions of the Jade Pool. I heard that it was difficult this year. I didn't expect that there would still be golden cores entering. Some people looked to the front curiously. By the way, who are those two golden cores? I just came out of seclusion not too long ago, and judging from their clothes, they should have just come here during the past 100 years. I don't know who they are, but being able to enter the inner region means that one of their offensive power isn't bad, whilst the attainments in array formations of the other ain't bad either. Furthermore, they must have cooperated well too. Otherwise, they wouldn't have reached the inner regions, even if they are at the edge. Junior brother of the 9th summit. Gu Qi of the 1st summit naturally saw Jiang Lan. He still regarded Jiang Lan as an enemy. Of course, he wasn't going to fight Jiang Lan. He just wanted to regain the dignity he had lost in the peaceful Void Lake. Chapter 69. Trying to enter the Jade Pool. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 69. Trying to enter the Jade Pool, the junior brother from the 9th summit. That's rather unexpected. Looking at Jiang Lan, who was in the inner regions of the Jade Pool, Lu Jian was a little surprised. He had observed Jiang Lan up close. His talent was indeed average. However, his state of mind was extremely stable, like an ancient well without ripples. This was indeed impressive. However, even though one's mental state was somewhat useful when entering the Jade Pool, it wasn't very useful either. It seems like he knows quite a bit about array formations. With his personality and mental state, that's indeed highly likely. He should have some advantages when learning array formations. Then, Lu Jian stopped paying attention to Jiang Lan. He was just slightly curious about how Jiang Lan managed to reach so far. Just then, the ceremony began. The highlight had come. After the fog completely dispersed, the surroundings became clear. Subsequently, a faint light appeared from the Jade Pool. Some of the females around the Jade Pool also emitted a faint light. Only the females at the outermost edge did not have faint light on them. Are these the people qualified to enter the Jade Pool? When Jianlan saw these lights, he naturally understood what would happen next. The ceremony had begun. At this moment, Ao Longyu's body was glowing as well. There were only gender requirements for entering the jade pool, not race requirements. Let's hope someone gets in. Jianlan muttered to himself. If no one entered, then his goddess diagram would be useless. Seniors, if you want to give it a try, you can start now. First Summit's Lin spoke. He was naturally on the mountain peak. He wasn't the closest to the jade pool, but he was at the very front. Including me, there are a total of 15 people present, with 6 of them being females. 2 of them have immortal auras, one was senior sister Ao, while the last 3 have restrained their auras, making it impossible for me to determine their cultivation levels. Jianlan began to analyze. These people should be the main force that entered the jade pool. Although there were some people who also wanted to give it a try, they were not very enthusiastic. He even saw a senior sister with an immortal aura standing behind him. No matter how he looked at it, she had no intention of entering. Junior brother Lin, you're always so close to the front. It looks like you want to see someone enter every time. At this time, a senior sister who was also in the inner regions of the jade pool stepped forward. She planned to be the first to attempt to enter the jade pool. Hearing the other party's words, Jianlan knew that the other party had tried this more than once or twice. Hongluan walked forward. Jianlan only managed to see her back. She was a beautiful woman dressed in red. As she moved forward, the white fog in the jade pool surged like a tide. Whoosh! A gentle breeze blew past, and white fog swept toward Hongluan. White fog whistled past her. Dressed in red, Hongluan struggled to resist the white fog. It was as if she would be taken away by the white fog if she was not careful. She stood where she was, blocking the attack of the white fog. She did not take a step back. After the white fog whistled past, Hongluan rushed towards the jade pool. Her speed was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, she had arrived beside the jade pool. It was as if she could touch the clear water of the jade pool with just one more step. However, at the last moment, she stopped. No matter how hard she tried, she could not advance. What a pity. Lu Zhou sighed. Then, Jianlan saw the senior sister fly backward. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, she was enveloped by the fog behind her. Jianlan saw the frustration on the other party's face. Then, she left the fog and returned to her previous position. It looks pretty simple. Jianlan muttered to himself. However, he definitely couldn't do it if he was given the chance to. After all, he understood that seeing and doing were 2 completely different affairs. Subsequently, Jianlan saw many senior sisters rushing into the jade pool. However, the results were the same. Regardless of their cultivation, they were all caught by the fog. Jianlan watched his senior sisters scream and lose their composure. In the end, he lowered his head and stopped looking. The position he was in was too obvious. He could easily offend some senior sisters with strong self-esteem if he continued looking on. Furthermore, women were incomprehensible. They could mistake his ordinary gaze as one with evil intentions. On the mountain peak, the cultivation bases of the others were all very strong, except for him. He was merely at the early stage golden core realm. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, it was best not to pay too much attention to the senior sisters attempting to enter the jade pool. Soon after, Jianlan heard the sounds of people flying in the air, as well as shameful sounds let out by them as they were knocked away. Some of them were probably caught off guard because it was their first attempt. However, no one who was spectating made a sound. They probably didn't dare to. After all, the senior sisters who were attempting to enter the jade pool were all rather strong. If they dared to laugh or make any noise, one might be remembered and perhaps even vanish without a trace one day. After a long time, everyone quietened down. Almost no one else went forward to give it a try anymore. Everyone looked around and realized that no one was trying anymore. No one else. Jianglong sighed inwardly. If no one entered, it meant that there was no goddess in the jade pool. His jade pool goddess diagram would merely remain as a decoration and be useless. It would be a pity. Right at this moment, Jianglong noticed that Ao Longyu suddenly moved. Jianglong was not surprised. Ao Longyu had come with a purpose in mind. However, did she choose to act now because she had become confident? This time, Jianglong looked at Ao Longyu to see if she could enter. I wonder if senior sister can enter. Lin Xia looked at Ao Longyu. She knew from the start that Ao Longyu would definitely try. Mu Xiu did not say anything. She understood. Senior sister Ao came to Kunlun with the goal of entering the jade pool. The others also looked at Ao Longyu, waiting for her to be sent flying. Hong Wan, who was the first to try, was also curious about Ao Longyu's result. Junior sister, do you still want to try? She muttered to herself in her heart. After all, if one failed, the scene would be rather embarrassing. Ao Longyu was originally an aloof dragon lady. Many people were waiting for her to lose her composure. Chapter 70. Ao Longyu wants to turn the tide. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 70. Ao Longyu wants to turn the tide. The others also glanced at Ao Longyu. Most people did not pay much attention. There were some who had some understanding of Ao Longyu, so they paid close attention to her. Dragon Race. This was the first time a dragon tried to enter the jade pool. Jianglong was also watching. He didn't hold much hope. The jade pool looked easy to enter, but it was actually very hard in reality. It was definitely not a matter of cultivation. Was it the jade pool choosing the people to enter? Or was it someone who was choosing who could enter the jade pool? There was no way to come to a conclusion at this moment. At this moment, Ao Longyu was walking along the path, waiting for the fog to arrive. In just a breath's time, the fog swept across from the lake. Faced with the fog, everyone knew that it was going to be a powerful attack. However, most people would be able to resist it as long as they persevered. The remaining time after they had resisted the attack was their only chance in entering the jade pool. Whoosh! The fog swept toward Ao Longyu. Ao Longyu also attempted to resist. A gentle breeze blew past. To Ao Longyu, this was an irresistible hurricane. But when she resisted, everyone realized. Ao Longyu didn't seem to be doing her best to resist. Her hand seemed to be reaching into the fog. Was she not in a good condition? The others were curious. At this moment, Ao Longyu was retreating in defeat. Retreating here meant that she was getting further and further away from success. Failure had the upper hand for now. Jianglong saw that Ao Longyu was indeed retreating, but she seemed to be doing something. But from this angle, he couldn't see it. However, he seemed to have seen Ao Longyu unleash some kind of spell technique. Aren't spells useless? He had seen quite a number of people attacking the fog just now. It was completely useless. Was senior sister Ao that irrational? Whoosh! While Jianglong was still in shock, Ao Longyu was sent flying. The fog remained in place. It was as if it was also surprised that Ao Longyu had been sent flying. Was she trying to scam it? Jianglong frowned. He saw Ao Longyu landing not far from him. If she retreated any further, she would fall out of the mountain. Doing so was equivalent to failure. Ao Longyu was also a little surprised. It seemed to be different from what she had imagined. However, she did not hesitate at all. Taking advantage of the momentary pause, she transformed into a half-dragon and began to resist the incoming fog. It seems like she indeed is not in a good condition. In theory, a perfected golden core shouldn't be sent flying. What was junior sister doing just now? Hong Luan felt that her junior sister had done something. That was why she was knocked flying. Lu Jian was slightly surprised before letting out a frown. Was it an illusion? I felt that junior sister was pushed out by some invisible force. Linen was also quite surprised to hear this. Array formation. But it doesn't feel like it. This junior sister of the dragon race sure has some tricks up her sleeves. Jianglan had some time to think now. The situation just now was abnormal and I seem to have seen something similar somewhere. Could it be? Jianglan looked at Ao Longyu and thought of a possibility. If senior sister Ao managed to block this attack, then after that, she might really have to enter the jade pool. If she could enter, then his goddess diagram would be able to activate. However, he was unsure of what would happen next. So he could only watch calmly. The fog whistled past. Although Ao Longyu retreated a little, she did not fall off the mountain. She had not failed. However, everyone instinctively thought that Ao Longyu had failed after seeing her getting swept away by the fog. She was too far away. It was impossible for her to succeed. Hong Luan also knew that it was impossible. It was not about speed at all. She was always in the same position, and her speed increased every time. Yet, she could not escape the palm of the fog. However, she also wanted to see if Ao Longyu could reach the jade pool even though she was at the edge of the mountain. There were also some others watching, but most of them were no longer paying attention. This was a foregone conclusion for many people. As Jianglan watched, he felt that there really was a chance of a comeback. Those who were still paying attention to Ao Longyu were shocked to discover that she did not run forward. In the next moment, everyone saw Ao Longyu turn around. Her back was facing the jade pool. What was she trying to do? The others didn't know, but Jianglan knew what she was doing. Geniuses were indeed geniuses. She actually thought of using such a small trick here. Furthermore, she wanted to use this little trick to turn the tide. Has senior sister given up? Lin Xia was curious. She felt that something was amiss. But she did not know what exactly was wrong. Not necessarily. Keep watching, Mu Xiu said softly. No way, no way. It feels like it. Can it even be used like this? Jing Ting also thought of something. Although they had never seen it before. But senior sister Ao suddenly retreated and now her back was facing the jade pool. This was obviously the theory that she had sought consultation with them previously. Was she really going to rewrite the records? Linen, Hong Luan, and the others didn't know what was going on, but they could sense it. They were all looking at Ao Longyu. What was Ao Longyu trying to do? They felt that something was amiss. Ao Longyu, who had her back facing the jade pool, looked at the fog in front of her and slowly raised her hand. Success or failure depended on this. An array formation appeared in front of Ao Longyu. It was a very ordinary array formation. It seemed to have no power at all. Not many people could understand Ao Longyu's actions. However, Jianglan looked at Ao Longyu. He understood what Ao Longyu was trying to do.